Welcome, Endgame fam. Yes, we're back. But it's not football, it's baseball season. That's right. Here to answer baseball fantasy questions for you. Now, if you watch our baseball channel, which you probably do if you're here, you're probably like, who is this guy? I don't know this guy. Well, yeah, I only do football. Pierre is the baseball expert, but I'm going to be helping him out today. I'm going to be playing the host today to get your questions answered for Pierre. So, Pierre, are you ready to help the people with their fantasy baseball drafts?
Always ready to talk baseball. It's funny. A lot of people are going to be focusing on basketball today. The tournament and all that. Yeah, we'll be filling out brackets tonight, but we still got time. In the meanwhile, you have fantasy baseball questions. Fire away. We did this a few days ago and had a lot of questions, a lot of really good questions, and that's what I love. No offense at all to our football fans and football viewers, but the baseball crowd, y'all have some really good questions. Takes a little bit more analysis sometimes. There's so many more players. There's so many more stats. There's so much more to dig into. So we're going to get into as much as possible. Look, you got a couple days left until actual baseball games that count, and then a week until everybody gets into action. So you're going to draft soon this week. You need to get those questions answered. So that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I might have some questions because believe it or not, I'm going to be trying a fantasy baseball league this year for the first time. So I definitely have questions. I listen to all Pierre's videos. I actually edit almost all of them. So I hear a lot about these names, but certainly I'm not nearly as much of an expert on this as Pierre is. So before we get to your questions, though, there are some things we probably need to discuss since the last time you went live. And let's start with we always love rookies, young, exciting rookies with potential. So let's start with Jackson Churio, and I apologize, of course, if I mispronounce any name. I'm terrible at names, even with football. But getting the first look at the rookie, 20-year-old rookie who looks like he's going to play. So from what you've seen in spring training so far, and from what you like about this player, are you higher or lower on him in your drafts than you were maybe a couple months ago?
I don't know that I changed too much based on what we've seen in spring or anything recently has done to really move me. So like he's hitting pretty well. He doesn't seem overmatched, but again, it's spring training, right? He's not facing an ace for 6-7 innings. He's not facing always the A squad. Everything in spring you have to take with like a grain of salt, right? He's hitting pretty well. He doesn't seem overmatched, but my one thing is you got to look at again. Look in fantasy. Like there's no doubt he's a stud, and there's a reason he's a top prospect in baseball. But no home runs yet, no stolen bases. He's in a good but not amazing lineup. I think he'll be good, but not amazing for fantasy. And so that's my thing. Is right? This, and it doesn't matter what sport. Rookies always get overhyped. In baseball, prospects get way overhyped and they don't all pan out. Now, as far as where you consider they're hit or not hit, I mean, that depends what your standard is. I think he'll be good. I don't know if he'll be like 2020 this season. I think he'll be solid, but look, the dude just less than a week ago just turned 20, like just now. And that's fine. There's plenty of young players who come in, but sometimes it actually takes a little bit of time. So I'll just say I think I'm okay drafting him if it's late enough. I'm not drafting him within the top 100. I don't know if anybody is. I do think that he'll be fine, but I feel like some people are probably going to be too high on him. And, I've learned over many years, I'm not going to overreach on a rookie. I'm not going to overreach on a guy who is getting too much hype in the offseason. I don't think like he's overhyped, but yeah, I'll just say this. I really don't think I have any Jackson Churio on my teams just yet.
All right, so let's. I guess that's a good segue. You kind of answered this a little bit, but not specifically. But let's. JK says drafting at 7 p.m. tonight. You won't know what spot until half an hour before, but let's say you had a fantasy baseball draft tonight, like JK does. What round do you feel comfortable taking Jackson Churio?
Good question. All right, I do have my rankings. I've been tweaking constantly. I probably have him too low, to be honest. I'd say right now, if you're in a 12-team league, let me see. I'll do some quick math here. Around 15, 16. I'm not taking him before that.
So pretty late. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Now, as far as draft spot, I'm wondering, JK High, is this like a random luck of the draw thing? If I get to pick a spot, or if you do like the KDS, like in NFBC leagues, if you get to choose, in any sort of way, or I do think you still want an early-ish pick, right? You don't want to be stuck in the middle necessarily. I'd rather pick sooner and get one of those stud outfielders. So I'm hoping you pull out a top 5 pick.
All right. Same thing with football, right? We want those earlier picks. Don't want to be stuck in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, just picking earlier just generally always seems to be better, right? I mean, yeah, you're not always going to hit. There's guys who get injured, there's guys who are bust, but I think I always want to have a top 5 pick if I can.
All right. And then I think the other thing we need to cover here is it Yuri Perez? Yuri Perez has apparently elbow soreness, some kind of elbow injury. How serious do you think this is, and how are you treating this, in your fantasy drafts as far as when you're picking
them? It's like the Marlins can't have nice things, right? And this is the risk you take with any hard-throwing young pitcher, right? It's just like, it feels like it's just inevitable, like the elbow injury happens. And this is not even just young pitchers, just any pitcher. So elbow soreness is pretty much the last thing you want to hear. I talked a lot of, a few days ago about Garrett Cole. Still feel like he's being drafted too high just based on name value. The dude is going to be out at least a month. It's probably really going to be more like 2 months. And then it's still not sure, right? You don't know. They're just assuming, oh yeah, he'll be fine in a couple of months. He'll rehab and he'll be fine. You can't just assume he'll be fine. How often do we hear a guy get setbacks, right? Has another injury on top of that injury. And Yuri Perez, I know he's super talented, but I was already a little concerned because being so young, being such a hard-throwing young pitcher, and on a team that's, let's face it, not really a contender, I was really a little bit worried about his innings limits. So I'm not completely scratching him off my draft board yet because we don't know what the final word is. Hopefully we find out tomorrow. But yeah, I'm probably avoiding until I know what the diagnosis is. Elbow soreness, nah. You can say that's enough for me. I'm gonna skip the risk.
Yeah, look, I grew up playing baseball, love baseball, so it's not like I don't know baseball. It's not like I'm learning baseball for the first time. But I've never played fantasy baseball. But as somebody who's going to play fantasy baseball for the first time, hearing elbow soreness for a pitcher is terrifying. It's kind of like hearing knee soreness for a running back in preseason, right? You don't want to hear like your running back has knee soreness. You don't want to hear your pitcher already has elbow soreness in spring training, because how does that get better? Like, I don't think it gets better pitching, I'm guessing, right? You got to rest, don't you?
Yep, that's exactly it. And the bottom line is, best case scenario is, oh, he just needs to rest and take some time off. That's already time you're missing. That's already stats you don't get. And again, what are the chances that it flares up again? What are the chances that it's a sign of something else, or leads to something else? A lot of times these pitchers, they can overcompensate. Guy has an injury. I haven't seen hitters too, right? Like a hamstring injury. Like, okay, once you rest and it's over, like you're fine. But you're not always fine, because guys then, they don't run as much, or maybe they're going to be compensating with the way they swing. It can affect a lot of players mentally too. That's what we don't even understand is for pitchers. A lot of it can be mental, not just physical. So, they're not going to throw as hard. They don't want to take risks. They don't trust their arm as much because they don't want it, to pop. So yeah, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, and Anthony's saying, what's up, Anthony? Saying doesn't draft pitchers with any arm issues at all. That's probably going to be my strategy as well, Anthony. I'm just don't even bother with it. Don't even bother with
it. No, exactly. And yeah, it's Kevin Gaussman, also a guy. His is not, I don't think, an elbow. I think it's a lat, but also he's not going to be ready for opening day. I'm not as worried there because I don't think it's the elbow, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm looking at it. I'll have to check that out. I'm not as worried about Gaussman just yet, even though I know he is older.
All right, and then I think one more thing to cover here, and then we'll start diving into some of the questions. And I had not heard about this until you actually mentioned it. There's a Soul series. So the baseball season which is already insanely long, is going to be even longer apparently this year because now we have opening day kind of sort of on March 20th and 21st, but only for two teams, the Dodgers and the Padres. So based on this, knowing that, okay, some drafts, I know our draft, I think is scheduled for the 24th, which is after these games. So in that case, do you just not get credit for the stats from those games or how does it work? And how would you, approach this if you had a draft before or after these games, I guess?
Yeah, I get why they do this. It's great for the game itself, and yeah, they need to do this. And it's not just so they're going to have they play games in Mexico and they have a Dominican series. All these, I'm all for that, right? Showcase the major league to the world. It's a little annoying. I hate that they had done this and they used to be in Japan. Like the Mariners going overseas, where it's like we're going to start the season, but not really, right? It's just two teams that are playing, and then the actual season starts a week later for everybody else. It's a little annoying, but at the same time, like you said, the baseball season is so long. It's 162 games. This is 2 games out of the 162. It doesn't make a big difference. You can't say, well, I'm not getting, Yamamoto's first start. Like, whatever. So I don't even think about this in terms of fantasy. I'm totally fine drafting after these games. I know I said that this weekend, maybe even tonight, some people are drafting. This weekend's probably the busiest draft weekend because all the, it's the last full weekend before the season technically starts. But there's going to be a lot of leagues drafting next weekend. And I think that's totally fine. And look, it's probably smarter because what if somebody gets hurt in one of those 2 games, in this whole series? What if, look, we still got a week left of spring training for at least other teams. Guys will still get hurt. Guys will still get signed as free agents. So the closer you wait to the start of the season, generally, the better. So, I mean, Soul Series will be very cool, right? Check it out if you can. But I'm not really taking this to account at all for my fantasy draft. So if you're drafting next week, I think that's totally fine. And I definitely would not overreact to anything that guy does in 1 or 2 of these games. A guy hits 2 home runs. Oh, I'm moving up my draft board. Don't do that.
Actually, that's a good point because I know you're very high on the Japanese pitcher Yamamoto. Is that his name?
Yep.
What if he goes out there? Let's say, like in our case, our draft is the 21st or 24th, excuse me. Anthony's saying his home league draft is they're not counting anything before March 28th. What if Yamamoto goes out there and gets lit up? Would that change your stance on him in your drafts?
So I thought you were going to say, what if he goes out there and dominates? Because that's just what I'm assuming. But
well, okay. I mean, I assume if he dominates, he's probably going to jump up. Like that's pretty much a given if he dominates. But let's say he goes out there, it's his first start ever in Major League Baseball. He gives up, I don't know, he only goes like 5 innings, and he gives up 5 or 6 runs or something, maybe a couple home runs. Like, how are you gonna? Are you gonna just say, "Hey, it's first game, not worried about it," or are you gonna be a bit worried about it?
Good. I'll say good because then his ADP might drop, and I'll get him even later. I'm not going to worry. And look, part of this too, and I guess for him it's different because he's technically never pitched in the major leagues in the United States before, so. This is a different environment for everybody. It's a road game for everybody, right? We're not just in a different park, but in a different country, jet lag, whatever, right? Preparedness. I'm not going to really put too much stock into anything that happens in these 2 games, realistically. If a guy does get lit up like that or something, good. Maybe it drops his ADP. I can get him later. And if a guy goes out and dominates, if like Yamamoto, if he dominates, that's just, feeding my confirmation bias. And so I'll just see that as I knew he'd be good. But I'm not going to take too much stock into it. And I think what Anthony mentioned, a lot of people, it's true, is you draft after these games happen. You don't count those games as those stats. It's just 2 games. So it's not a big deal.
Right. All right, well, let's start getting to our questions now. We have some questions coming in. I know that's why you're here. That's why we're all here, to get questions answered. I will let you know that we'll try to get to every question. We always do. I don't know if you've joined us on the football channel, you know how busy it can be. Baseball, not quite at that level. But if you want to guarantee your questions answered, or you just want to support the channel for all the hard work Pierre does, you can drop a super chat, and we'll guarantee we answer it. But we'll try to get as many as we can that aren't, so don't feel like you have to. But we do have a super chat already. Thank you from Benet Black, who also was with us all season long on the Football Channel. What's up? He's saying, what 2 players would you target in a 12-team head-to-head league with the number 12 pick? So you're getting the number 12 pick. Who are the guys you're looking at there?
All right. Well, what is up, Benny? Like I said, always with us in the Football Channel. So you got the 12th pick in the 12-team league. Realistically, like, who's actually going to be there? I mean, I wish I could say Freddie Freeman, who earlier in the preseason, I think you could get around that pick, especially in underdog. Probably not. I think you're probably not getting Otani, although it's possible, because one thing that does worry people off of Otani is that he only qualifies at DH, right? You have to, and a lot of people don't like I have to use my utility spot, my DH spot on my first round pick. I mean, that's annoying, but if you're getting what Otani's giving you, you're not complaining too much. So I still think if Otani's there, you take Otani. If Spencer Strider is there, you definitely take Spencer Strider. And I'm not one who really wants to pull the trigger early on starting pitcher, until like round 3 or 4. But with all these guys dropping like flies, yeah, I think I'm happy taking Strider there. Jordan, I would love. And if for some reason none of those guys are available, I'm fine taking Jose Ramirez, because he's kind of dropped out of the first round because he didn't have as good a season last year. He's still helping you in every single category. He's still fine. There's nothing wrong with him. So I would say in order, again, assuming like who is possibly going to be there, Otani, Strider, Jordan, Ramirez. I would take 2 of those guys probably in that order.
All right, there you go. And I'll ask a follow-up here. And again, guys, I'm learning too. I'm learning with you. So I know you talk in some of your videos where you say like you don't have to go pitcher early. You can wait, like you're fine waiting until round 3 or round 4 and getting guys like, I don't know, who's that guy? Some guy for the Mariners, Luis Rodriguez or something like that. Anyways, there's guys in that range that you're okay getting. Maybe even Yamamoto in the 3rd or whatever. But if he goes Strider in the 1st, does that change your strategy then in the rounds after, since you went pitcher early, or do you still just stick with the same strategy?
Yes, that's a great point. If you're getting Strider in the 1st round, then you're waiting. I'm waiting at least till probably the 5th round to get my next pitcher. I don't want to load up too much just on starting pitchers early, because you're passing on offensive players, obviously. My whole thing is I want to make sure I at least have one ace. One guy I know I feel like is an ace. And if it's Strider, great. You have probably the best pitcher in all of baseball. If it's not, that's fine. You got a stud, you got an Otani or Alvarez, whatever. And then if I can get like Corbin Burns in round 3, I will do it, because I think he's probably going to be the best pitcher in the American League this year, now that Cole is out. And if not, then I'm probably going to pull the trigger in either round 4 or 5 on whoever's the best left. Like, I don't want to say like I'm drafting a pitcher just for the sake of drafting a pitcher, but I feel like you need to have at least one guy who's like that anchor who's going to get you close to 200 innings. You know what I mean? You don't want to wait and then all of a sudden you're filling your rotation with a bunch of like mid-rotation guys and you don't feel great about any one of them. You know what I mean? So, yeah, if you do get one early, then I don't think you don't just keep going back to the well, pitcher, because then all of a sudden you're not going to like your offense. You have to have, some sort of balance.
All right, so there you go. So if you get Strider in the 1st, you can wait till round 5 or so. But if you miss out on him, then probably the next time it comes around to you with one of those 2 picks, you're probably looking at one of those aces, right?
Yeah. It always depends who and where. I'm probably not taking one in round 2. There's really nobody I like anymore in round 2 as far as starting pitcher.
All right, now I know this one is not going to feel good to you. But Jeremy B is asking, can Jazz Chisholm play 80 games? Can he play half a season this year?
Man, the bar is low. But I get it. I get it. I really hope so. I hope that he's playing as close to a full season as possible. I think he can. And you have to realize, now he's just in the outfield. Pitched up a little bit. I mean, I don't know, you can take anything that he or coaches have said in this offseason. He's in great shape and he's done this and whatever. Like, it doesn't matter, right? As soon as you get hurt, you get hurt. Any guy can get hurt at any time. I I don't want to slap the injury prone tag on him yet, even though he's been injured a lot. And not just because he's my favorite player, my favorite team. But look, it happens. Everyone gets hurt at some point, right? Nobody's injury prone until they get injured, and then all of a sudden. So yeah, I think 80. Like, that's still a pretty low threshold. I'm thinking even if he goes 120 games, you're still getting a guy who's a 5 category stud. So I'm still drafting Jazz. Now I'm not overdrafting. I did notice an underdog, which still you can still do best ball drafts. By the way, you got a little over a week left. His ADP has climbed in underdog because I used to be able to get him in like the 80s, and now I just looked at my draft I'm doing today. All of a sudden, he's close to pick 50. So an underdog, I'm a little bit out on Jazz because everyone else is in on him, right? There's a lot of ADPs that have shifted, and you know this. This works for everything. When the ADP goes up, you back off, okay? And if he's climbing, somebody else is dropping. So who is dropping, and who am I going to draft instead? So I have some Jazz from earlier drafts, but yeah, I think now that we're getting close to the season and people are like, oh, he isn't hurt. Like, let's draft him. Like, oh, yeah, he's really good when he's healthy. But I'll still draft him and redraft, but an underdog, I'm kind of out.
So I have a follow-up question, but not really. But like, because again, I grew up, I loved baseball. I played baseball. That was like my dream, to be a professional baseball player. Maybe it's just, have baseball players just gotten way softer, or did I just not realize it because I was a kid? But like, I don't ever remember like my favorite players missing significant times, and it like now it's like everybody misses just tons of games every year. It seems like what's going on, or is that just perception?
No, you're right. This is every sport. I mean, I remember, it sticks out to me more is, and I don't follow, and I know you don't as much either, follow the NBA, like we used to because we're just so busy with the other sports. But I don't remember basketball players ever getting hurt, like ever. Like if it was a weird thing if a player was like missing a game. Like every player played every game. And now you got guys who miss like weeks at a time, and they're like every night you're like, is he going to play or not? Like that never used to happen, right? It's not I mean, I guess it's kind of a contact sport, but it's not supposed to be something that keeps guys on the shelf, right? It's just different, and it's probably a good thing. It's good for the players, right? They take care of their bodies and they prolong their careers, and we're more conscious of that. It's not like it used to be, like especially with baseball and football. It's like, yeah, just rub some dirt on it and get back out there. All right, so it's not like that anymore. We also have more advanced analytics, and it's good. So it's true. Yeah, players are going to miss more time, and you have to. This is what also is a good tip for fantasy drafting. Don't forget at some point, probably late, to get a guy who can slot in at multiple positions, right? A utility guy. Every baseball team in real life has a utility guy that they can just stick wherever. You want that in fantasy too. You can't have a good high-end backup at every position. So get a guy who can slot in multiple spots.
It wouldn't be an endgame stream without the dog. So there we go. It's official now. It's officially an endgame stream. All right. Let's go to this question because you did talk a little bit about Garrett Cole. Apparently, he's dealing with some kind of injury. I'm glad you mentioned that because I probably would have drafted him not knowing that. So how far has Garrett Cole dropped for you?
A lot.
This is from Tribal, by the way. Thank you.
If you want to know specifically, and again, just like with football, in Fantasy Pros, my rankings are out there. Right now, I got him 161. And it's
pick 161. Wasn't he like a second or third rounder?
Yep.
But so what is the exact issue with Garrett Cole then that he's dropped that far?
That's the problem. It's an elbow issue. It says, okay, here's the latest. Could return. Let me make sure we get the phrasing right. Could return in 10 to 12 weeks.
Oh.
Now, he doesn't need, it's not a Tommy John and it's season-ending thing, obviously. So he's still going to play. That's if he's fine in 10 to 12 weeks. We already are taking 2 months of the season off the shelf. Like, I know it's a long season, but you're telling me straight up there's a guy who's missing a third of the season, like for sure, no doubt. Okay, so you have to subtract that production from what you feel like you're getting from him. And you have to realize, okay, if I'm taking Garrett Cole, then that means I have to sub in somebody else who I feel is going to make up, at least to some extent, that production, right? You're putting yourself at a disadvantage. But then here's the other thing, and that's maybe where now I'm too cautious, but I'm doing this because I've been burned before. We all have, and we kind of tend to forget about it. But you're assuming that in 10 to 12 weeks, everything went perfectly. He's totally 100% healthy. He's the exact same guy he was before the injury, and that he is going to be just as good for the rest of the season. He's not going to have any setbacks. He's not going to have any issues with command. He's not going to be rusty because he didn't pitch for 10 to 12 weeks. You see what I'm saying? There's so many things that could go wrong. And then the one thing that could go right is, oh, he's just the same guy as back to normal. Sorry, I'm not taking that chance.
All right, well there you go, Travel. There's your answer. All right, I'm glad I got on the stream. I probably would have taken him and been like, why is everybody laughing at me? All right, Anthony wants to know: are you planning on drafting him on a Noelvi Marte at all? Noelvi Marte at all?
I was drafting him a lot until the suspension. Again, this is the guy okay, I'll just say no, I'm not, because okay, now we're taking half the season off the shelf, straight up. It's not an injury, but still, he's gonna have to prove that he earns that playing time now when he hasn't been there half a season and the other guys are out there playing. They might just be fine without him. And it's not like this is a known stud, right? This is not somebody who's just been out there and he's just going to be plugged right back into the lineup. Like, we assumed he was going to be the starting third baseman, but we didn't know for sure. And now we know that he'll be gone half the season. So, no, I did have him in a couple of best ball drafts, but oh well. Hopefully he does something. No. It's
good thing about best ball is if he comes back and does something, he'll be okay.
Yeah, the ifs play out better in best ball.
Yes. I actually really like this question from AJM. Because this kind of reminds me of football with like the running backs by committee. Is it too early to know what teams will have 5-man rotations and what teams will have 6? And I would think that's probably very important because you obviously want someone who's going to be pitching every 5 days versus every 6.
That's a great question. We can't say we know for sure. And I'll just say this, as far as projected rotations, I mean, I know most people use roster resource, which is logical. I also check MLB playing time. Guy I used to work with, Mike Kurland, who we know from Rotoballer. He's got his own thing now. He does his own thing. Neither one of them is going to be 100% accurate, right? Because we don't know until we see what happens. I think there's going to be fewer teams that use a 6-man rotation this year. Obviously, Ohtani not pitching kind of solves that problem there for the Dodgers. Offhand, honestly, I don't know how many teams are going to use a 6-man rotation. I mean, how many teams really have the depth to do that and that they need to do that? The Giants can barely put together a 5-man rotation, if anything, right now. So I think I'm just going to assume most teams right now are going with a 5-man rotation. I honestly trying to think offhand who might even extend to 6. Maybe the Tigers, but I doubt it. So, I don't even know if there is a team I can think of.
All right, well, that's good news. We don't have to worry about that. All right, Requiem for a Dream, which was a crazy movie if you've ever seen it. Who is a better starting pitcher? Is Bobby Miller? Is that right? Because I know I've heard you talk about Bryce Miller, I think, a bunch. I don't know if I've ever heard you talk about Bobby Miller. I've certainly heard you talk about Cole Reagan, so I think I know your answer here. But between Bobby Miller and Cole Reagan, who do you think will be better?
I mean, who is better? They're both really good. I know that. I think I'm going to still draft Cole Reagan's over Bobby Miller, not just because Bobby Miller is young. I like Cole Reagan's. That's it. I had nothing against Bobby Miller. I don't know. Maybe it's me being a little too hesitant on the young player, assuming he just steps forward and is an ace in this first full year. But I can't even say like either one is better. They're both good, but I think Reagan's has the potential to be more dominant. So right now I'm drafting Reagan's more also, especially because you can get Reagan's couple rounds later.
Oh, well, anytime there's two guys that are close, take the discount.
Exactly.
And then he has a follow-up, because we did talk about Jackson Churio a little bit in the beginning. Are you drafting, I don't know who Langford over Churio?
I am. Langford, look, some people have Langford as the number one prospect instead of Churio. Does it really matter who's got what rankings? No, but who I think is going to be better in fantasy this year, I think it's Langford. I just think he's a little bit more pro ready. I do think right now he's got more power. I know I feel better about the Rangers lineup than the Brewers lineup. Look, Langford looks ready. I mean, what does he have to prove? You know, like I just said, Churio's been fine. I'm not worried about Churio being bad in year one, but hasn't really shown the power yet. I don't know if it's ready yet. I think Langford's power is pretty much developed. I don't think he's going to hit like 30 home runs or anything, but I think he can get to 20. So yeah, I am drafting Langford over Churio.
All right, there you go. Thank you for the questions. Shane K77 asking, what are the chances that Jordan Walker has a breakout this year?
Pretty good. And look, I am big on Walker. I am taking him. I think he is a breakout candidate. He's definitely a post-hype breakout, because last year everyone assumed he would break out in his rookie season, and he did for like 2 weeks, and then he got sent down. It's easy to just forget about these guys, right? Like, he wasn't amazing as a rookie, so let's just move on. Like, come on. How old is Walker now? I think he's 21 or something, maybe 22 at the most. Yeah, I definitely like Jordan Walker. I know some people are very skeptical. I can't remember who it was. A couple of weeks ago, someone made a comment on that video where I put Jordan Walker on the cover. Basically, like, the Cardinals don't develop position players. I go, okay, fine. Maybe they don't have a great track record, but you can't say, well, he's in this organization, he's not going to break out. They still have a good lineup, right? He's just so talented. So I think it's a pretty good chance. I don't think it's a slam dunk, but I'm in on Jordan Walker this year.
All right, there you go. And then we have a cameo, Ted Williams, Uncle Ted. What do you think about this strategy? I don't know if this is sarcasm or what, but just go full on Uncle Ted strategy, go all bats, murderers row, forget starters.
Uncle Ted has been on this for the entire offseason. And look, I'm sort of doing a modified Uncle Ted strategy in my current underdog. I have one pitcher, but I'm gonna wait. I need at least one guy, right? At least one ace. But in my current underdog draft, the dinger, I got one pitcher. I will do the modified Uncle Ted. I'll wait till after round 10 to take my next starter. How's that? I can't go like full 0 SP. I don't know that's a winning strategy, but I'm going to wait.
This is funny because it's like the same thing as in fantasy football, right? You have like the 0 RB guys that are like just wait on running back, and then now you have like anchor RB where you take one early running back. I guess that would be like anchor starting pitcher where you take one. So Uncle Ted is a fan of 0 starting pitcher. I like it, Uncle Ted. I'm a 0 RB guy, so I like let's just go 0. Just give me the 0.
Yeah, the problem is sometimes if you don't pull it off right, you go 0 whatever, and you're left with 0 at that position. It's like I want at least one pitcher I feel pretty solid about. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, some of those guys you draft late will hit, but not all of them will hit. So if you only draft 6-7 pitchers and you don't get anyone who's like a breakout, you know what I mean, who can replace like number one kind of pitcher status, whatever. So I don't know.
Yeah, I feel
I'm
like
doing the modified.
Again, I've never played fantasy baseball, so maybe I'm wrong. But just again, I loved baseball for many, many years, watched baseball a ton. Like the reason why 0 RB is so effective in football is because running backs get hurt so much that you have these guys who are handcuffed afterthought running backs that win leagues every single year, right? It's like every year you can point out a handful of running backs that nobody really drafted that won leagues. Does it work the same way with starting pitchers? Like, do you have these starting pitchers who come out of nowhere because of injuries or performance and win leagues?
That actually is a great point and also a great question, because it's yes and no. I mean, are there guys who come out of nowhere? Of course, there's always a few guys who nobody was drafting. Nobody knew Cole Reagans last year. Absolutely nobody even thought or knew Cole Reagans existed. And then He got traded, and then all of a sudden became a starter, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, this guy's really good. Where's he been? Okay, you didn't draft. Nobody drafted Cole Reagans, but there's always a few guys who will come out and do that. But it's also completely different from like the RB thing, right? So an RB like Cam Akers gets traded, right?
Well, like Kyron Williams this year, right?
Kyron Williams comes out of nowhere because he took that job. If somebody like Garrett Cole goes down, yeah, sure, somebody has to take his spot, but is that guy who's taking his spot who wasn't in the rotation? Because here's what's different. Okay, in the NFL, you need how many running backs really, like, to be the guy? There's only going to be one, right? Nobody uses a fullback anymore except for like 2 teams. Like, there's one running back you really depend on that you need. And when that running back goes down, you need another guy to step up and take his carries. Like, just assume that. In baseball, most teams are a 5-man rotation. That means you can say, okay, who are my 5 best pitchers who I trust to go out there and start every day? One of them goes down. Let's say it's your ace. Now you're picking the guy. It's not the next man up. It's the 6th man up, because this guy wasn't in the top 5 of your rotation and you're plugging him in, or you're calling up a rookie from the minors. So it's not really a one-to-one comparison, right? It's not like, well, there's this backup running back that he could be a starter in some teams, but he's stuck behind, whoever. There are a lot of choices in baseball. So it could be, if it's a young pitcher who just needs his shot, okay, sure. Like maybe Will Warren for the Yankees. I'll take some Will Warren because I think he's talented. He hasn't really had a chance yet just because he hasn't been on the major league roster, right? But is there really a guy that you feel like can just step up and, and take over for an ace? A lot of times it's not really that simple. So I don't want to wait. And look, how many starting pitchers get hurt? A lot. You're assuming that if you skip on the early pitchers, because I don't want to take on that injury risk. Well, who did you wait for in round 10 or 11? That guy could get hurt too. Then you have to say, like, okay, now my ace is the guy I drafted in round 13. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, of course it's risky.
Right.
Everything is risky. Where you could take Ronald Acuna at number 1. Guess what? He could get hurt too. He's been hurt before. He's missed an entire season before. So it just, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's risk, but you just have to take smart risks.
Sure. All right. Grotto 84. What's some of your favorite late round closers?
All right. Good question. Late round closers, guys who are technically the guy right now, but you don't feel great about. I will say I think Kyle Finnegan is a nice value. I know he might not be the only closer there, but I think he's kind of at least going under the radar. He's a good value. Now, of course, assuming he's still late round, I think he will be, but Abner Uribe for Milwaukee, we know Devin Williams is out 3 months. Someone's got to close games in Milwaukee. I think it's going to be Uribe. We don't really know for sure, but I like Uribe. I've drafted him already in like 5 different leagues, and I didn't have Devin Williams in those leagues, so I was already all over Uribe. I don't know if Ryan Helsley is really a late round guy. It depends on what league you're in, but he can be had, I think, at a reasonable draft slot, and Helsley, I think, could be really good. And then as far as late round guys who are actually the closers, I think Carlos Estevez could still surprise people and get a lot of saves. I think people just assume he'll lose his job, but I'm not assuming that.
All right, there you go. Thank you for the question. All right, Anthony with another one saying Jackson Merrill made the team for now in Korea. Do you think he sticks, or like when they get back to the States, they're like, okay, thanks, see you later?
No, I think he sticks. I mean, if he made the team and, unless he struggles, sure, if he struggles, like any rookie, if he struggles, they'll send him down. But if he's on the squad, it's for a reason. It's not like they're crazy deep. And the Padres seem bent to make sure that every single player that they have in the field is a former shortstop. So why not?
All right. And then we talked about a few of these guys, or a couple of these guys. Brian Looper. Who's going to be the best of these 3 for fantasy? Now, I know there's one guy you really like on here, but you might like the Yuri Perez, who we talked about with in the beginning with the elbow soreness. Bobby Miller, who we just talked about, and Grayson Rodriguez.
You already know. You already know. I'm all over Grayson Rodriguez. I don't think we can even keep Yuri up there, because even if they come back and say, no, false alarm, he's totally fine. He was dealing already with like a nail blister kind of issue. I think we have to just drop Yuri Perez to the bottom of this list at least. I'm not saying he's undraftable yet, but yeah, I'm all over Grayson Rodriguez. He's my favorite kind of SP2 who can be an SP1. He's my dark horse Cy Young candidate. He is my everything. I like Grayson Rodriguez.
All right, there you go. All right, Requiem for a Dream with another one. How long until the Nats call up Cruz?
Good question. I hope it's soon. I have Dylan Cruz in several leagues, not just underdog best ball leagues. I drafted him late and stashed him in a couple of spots. I think it's just a matter of time. I'm hoping June is the latest. I don't think it's that long. Look, who's really keeping him off the field there in Washington? Like this whole outfield should be rookies this season, but yeah, I think Cruz will be totally fine. They're just needing to give him a little time to, show himself at probably double A. So I'm going to say let's shoot for early June. And then as far as Victor Scott, that's a great now late round pick. I mean, with injuries there, Edman I don't think is ready for the season. Dude, just for stolen bases alone, it's worth it to stash Victor Scott and just see what happens. So I don't think we'll have to wait till late summer to see him.
All right, there you go. Thanks for the question again. Then Shane K77 with another one. I know you are definitely like Tristan Casas this year. Are the Red Sox committed to throwing him out there for 150 games, given that he struggles a bit versus lefties? And will he move to the elite tier at first base?
I think they're definitely committed to him because, I mean, he's really part of this if they have a young nucleus, which is not a young lineup, but he's kind of like their future, right? He's a guy who could be the heart of the order for years to come. I don't think he's going to struggle that badly against lefties. I mean, we didn't see a whole lot last year, but I don't think he's a full-out liability because he still walks a good amount. So, yeah, I think they'll commit to him. I mean, who are they really replacing him with? They have, I think they got CJ Cron. I'm not too worried. Right? I'm not too worried. I think Casas is pretty much out there every day. So he'll once in a while, see it in a game to a left-handed starter. But I'm not too worried.
All right, there you go. And then now I know you talk about this sometimes, holds leagues that give you points for holds. So who are some non-closer relievers that have value in a holds league?
All right, holds and yes, saves and holds, definitely preferable. If you can do that, if you haven't yet, ask your commissioner to do save and holds. Who are guys who are not the closer? Like, okay, Jason Adam or in Tampa Bay also could be the next man up to get saves, but Tampa Bay is always a good place to go for relievers or pitchers in general. San Diego is going to be an interesting one because we don't really know how the pecking order is going to go. I said let's keep an eye. That's one thing I will kind of put some stock into. Again, it's only 2 games, but in the Soul Series, who's going to be the 8th inning guy or the 7th inning guy? I think Yuki Matsui could be the guy, but let's see if they use him as that next guy. James MacArthur, if he's not the closer, he's going to be one of my favorite non-closer relievers. So I really like James MacArthur. And, of course, there's Aroldis Chapman. Yeah, I think those are probably my favorite right now, guys who are not closers. And, of course, there's AJ Minter. So those are some of my strongest options there.
All right, there you go. Thank you for the question. And then Anthony with another one. What about Mason Miller? How many chances will he get?
I mean, it's the A's. Do we really want to trust an A's closer? Probably not. I will say I did take, and again, a league that uses a lot of relievers, saves and holds, Danny Jimenez. I think he's kind of like a sneaky reliever. I don't know if I trust Mason Miller as the closer, honestly. I feel like this is like a trade waiting to happen too. The A's just know they're going to dangle him out there midseason and try to trade him for something. I don't even know. I like Mason Miller. Everybody likes Mason Miller, but I don't feel like I can trust him for fantasy just yet.
So not a lot of chances is the answer, I guess.
Eh.
I like this question because this is like a good strategy even in fantasy football, right? If you have like IR spots with your last pick, you draft somebody who's on IR, and then you stick them in your IR slot and you go to the waiver wire and you add somebody else. So do you have any favorite end of draft IL? What does IL stand for?
Injured list.
Oh, that makes sense. It's a very, very injured list. Yeah. It's our injured list. Very baseball.
Well, used to be the DL, but the disabled is not the term they want to use anymore.
Okay, so, yeah, I get that.
Like, they're just injured.
Right,
they're
so
not disabled.
You have any end of draft IL stashes? If your league has IL spots, I guess.
I mean, I generally am not stashing injured players to start the season unless it's like a great value. It's also risky because a lot of times a guy will be on the injured list, but they're not yet. Like, let's say you're drafting now, and a guy doesn't have IL status. So it's really tricky. It's only going to be a guy who is not seriously injured, who just needs some more time. So like if Gaussman, starts the season on the IL, yeah, I'll still draft him if he's a good value. If he drops like round 4 or 5 at least, probably, actually, I shouldn't even say drops. He's probably more like 5 or 6 at least. But I typically don't love stashing injured players. Gavin Williams, I think if you can get him like late, because now he might be a late last round pick, sure, that's a guy I might stash. But I don't love it. What I do like is if you do have a league that has NA spots where you can stash a minor leaguer, I'm definitely doing that. And I just did that with Victor Scott. In fact, draft him, stash him, put him on the NA list, and then you pick up somebody off waivers.
All right. There you go. And I know because, when we do fantasy football drafts, sometimes we have like Michael Thomas believers. When Josh Gordon used to, get reinstated, everybody would run out and add him. What was it? Wasn't there like last year, like Le'Veon Bell wanted to make a comeback and suddenly he was like the most trending waiver wire ad? Well, what about this one? I heard Roger Clemens is making a comeback. He pitched for the Bananas, the whatever that like Harlem Globetrotter baseball team is. If Roger Clemens makes a comeback, are you drafting Roger Clemens?
Anybody who's on the Savannah Bananas, it's probably not worth drafting. So, yeah, I don't know about that. Although I will just say, this is probably not the time to get on the soapbox, but like, come on, let's just get all these guys in the Hall of Fame, right? Bonds and all these, like, just stop with all that.
No, get him in the Hall of Fame, and I don't want to. This is my first baseball stream. I don't want to already rile up the natives, so I won't. But yeah, get him in the like. How can you not like? Imagine like going to the Hall of Fame and it's like, yeah, this guy who has the most home runs in Major League history, and prior to taking steroids was probably if he just retired the year he started. I'm talking about Barry Bonds, of course. If he just retired the year he started taking steroids, he'd probably still be in the Hall of Fame, right? If he just took that part of his career, like the pre-steroid part of his career, he'd probably still be in the Hall of Fame. Like,
yeah, that's the unfortunate part about it is he should just be a Hall of Famer straight up. But anyways, that's an
and apparently you now hate bananas because you will not take a Savannah banana.
It's banana. I actually love bananas.
I do too. I ate one right before the stream. Actually, I like this one. These are always fun. Who are you betting on for Cy Young for each league this year? Who's gonna take home the Cy Young award?
Well, I don't even know if this is too bold anymore, but for American League, I already talked about it. Go Grayson Rodriguez. I think he can do it. I mean, Garrett Cole now pretty much out of contention. I mean, I guess he could win it in half a season, but I really doubt it. I mean, obviously Burns. Well, I think Burns might be the front runner. I'm going to go with Grayson Rodriguez in the AL. I like him. And I don't think there's any way you can not say Spencer Strider. I mean, it's shocking he hasn't won it yet, but he will, I think, this year. So if I was going to pick like a dark horse for the NL, like a realistic dark horse, then, I mean, I don't even know. There's not anybody else I even Love. I guess I go with my other guy I love is Hunter Green. I don't know if he's really signing the material yet. I guess Yamamoto would make the most sense. I don't know if he's a dark horse either, but
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny you mentioned that about Spencer Strider because one of your videos, you're talking about Blake Snell, and you mentioned he was like the reigning Cy Young winner, and I was like, because everything I've heard about Spencer Strider is like he's the best pitcher in baseball. And
yeah.
I'm like, wait, how did Spencer? And I go and look, and Spencer Strider got finished fourth in the Cy Young voting. Fourth?
Yeah.
Shows you that I guess that the voters haven't gotten any better over the years. But that also kind of leads into Blake Snell because he finally has a team. It's the Astros. So I'm asking you, the people aren't, I am. Now that he's on the Astros, because I think you did a video where you're saying like I was like he was a bust, he's gonna be a bust. I think was he on the bus video? He's on one of those videos.
He was on the bus video.
So now that he's on the Astros, have you changed your tune? Are you drafting him and where?
Well, I don't know if that's official. It's rumors. They're pursuing him. If
Oh,
he's
it's
an
not
Astro,
official
which
yet.
is,
Huh? He hasn't officially signed anywhere.
I don't think so, unless I missed it today. But yeah, they're supposedly that's the rumor. But anyways,
Yeah, you're right. It says in serious pursuit.
serious pursuit. Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
mean,
let's assume he goes to the Astros. Does that change your?
not really. I mean, it's obviously a good spot for him to be in. But we know what Snell is. I already, like you said, I talked about the reasons on that video, like why I'm not in on Snell. He put it together last year. Again, he's done this. He's had dominant stretches, but he's not always dominant. The control is not always there. So, yeah, sure, you can take Blake Snell. Just don't assume. I don't like when there's a guy who is inconsistent in his career, and then people take him coming off a career year. I mean, I guess you could say his seasons with Tampa a few years ago was better. Whatever. He won the Cy Young. You're just assuming he's giving you exactly what he gave you last year. He hasn't proven that he does the exact same thing every year, and so it just would be a mistake to assume, oh, he's going to be that again.
Also, apparently he's in a contract year because he's now a free agent. And we see the same thing in football too, right? A guy like maybe, he's on his rookie contract, doesn't really do like he's okay, but doesn't do great.
True.
And then all of a sudden he's on that last year of the rookie deal. I'm not saying he's on his rookie deal or whatever. And he has that monster season. Then he signs that big deal and he goes back to being kind of the guy he was. So I get what you're saying in that. It definitely happens.
You know what? I will say that does maybe it'll make a little bit of a difference. He's been holding out. The reason he hasn't signed yet is he's waiting for this monster deal, right? He's like, hey, I just took on the Cy Young, I'm dominant. And of course, his agent wants to get the entire bag, right? What if a team isn't willing to do that? What if he does what just happened with some other players? He's like, okay, I guess I'm just taking a 1-year deal and then I'll go for it again next year. Maybe that makes him a little more incentivized this year, right? Because he's, again, just playing on a 1-year deal. I don't know if he was really going to get. And think about it. Why hasn't any team just thrown this long-term deal at him? Because they have some concerns, right? Maybe he's not worth $200 million. So,
all right, and then so you gave your Cy Young picks. What about Rookie of the Year picks for each league?
Rookie of the Year picks. Y'all have good questions. Okay. I'm going to probably lean towards hitters on both sides. So I know I mentioned Wyatt Langford earlier. I like him a lot, but I'm going to go Evan Carter. He's a guy I've been all in on for the Rangers. I think it's probably going to be one of those two guys, but I'll probably lean towards Carter in the American League. National League, I kind of already hinted at this. I'm going to say probably not Churio. Not that he couldn't be, but just going to take a little bit of time, I think. I think just because the guy is a number one prospect doesn't mean he's going to be the number one player of his class for this particular year. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So let me think. Rookie for the National League, like the best. Because a lot of this comes down to playing time too, right? Like I like Dylan Cruz, but am I assuming he's going to play enough and be called up early enough? Like Jackson Merrill, yeah, I think he'll stick, but I don't think he's going to perform to like rookie of the year potential. I guess I might say Kyle Harrison, who's a pitcher that I like and I've talked about a lot. I think if he's out there enough, he might be able to pull it off.
All right, there you go. And then we talked about Roger Clemens. What about Trevor Bauer? Is he just permanently blacklisted, or will there be a team that will sign him?
There will be no team that wants to sign him, and it's not because of the accusations and because of whatever happened in court. Like, no, like teams just nobody wants him in the clubhouse, right? Like just don't. he's pretty much out.
All right, so don't draft Trevor Bauer,
and he should be.
And then Derek, what's up? Good to see you. Should he add all of the Tigers pitchers? Mize, Manning, and Olsen all look legit. It's a 20-team league. Would you be okay having all of the Tigers pitchers?
If you're in a 20-team league, you're going to go pretty deep. I'm all over Mize. You know this. I like Manning. Manning doesn't have as much upside, but I think Manning, when he's healthy, he's very solid. Yeah, short answer. Yeah, I like all the Tigers pitchers. I'm not as sold on Olsen. I think I'd rather take Job, especially if you can get him as early. But yeah, I love the Tigers pitching staff. So they do look legit.
There you go. And I do have to agree with this. Angelo, I don't even know why I don't really watch baseball videos, but I've somehow seen his YouTube channel. He actually does have some pretty good videos, but I don't know if that's going to help his case to getting on a baseball team.
Look, he is a smart guy. I mean, there's no denying that, but he's not going to go over too well in any clubhouses, and I think teams just don't want to touch him. And it's not even because of all the other stuff. It's because he basically called out his own colleagues, for the sticky stuff thing a couple of years ago. It's just nobody likes him.
There you go. All right. So not getting back. All right, I think we're through most of the questions. Obviously, if we get any coming in here, we'll do it. Anything else you want to cover that wasn't asked or we didn't cover here that you wanted to talk about?
I'll just say, we're going to do a few more draft videos, but then it's going to be season pretty soon. I'm going to assume people are still drafting up through next weekend because I know I am and some of you are. So just always check to make sure that things, shift and change with rankings. Stick with your own gut. Stick with your own feel on these players. Don't look at what these sites say. Because, again, I talked about, the players I like better in Yahoo and then ESPN. And then, no matter where you play. Because with baseball, there's so many different ways to play. There's so many different sites you can use. And they're all going to have different rankings and different things. When it comes down to it, you like a guy, you feel like he's going to have a good season, trust yourself, take that guy. Don't look at what everyone's doing. Don't overreact to things. React to injuries. Definitely react to injuries. Like, don't underreact to injuries. I will say that. But no matter where you play, you almost kind of want to try to, just ignore the noise. Don't go by that site's rankings. You use it as a guide. Obviously, if you feel like a guy's going to be available in a certain spot or not available in a certain spot, you want to use that as a general guide. But for some of it, much of it is you just have to go with what you think. So I'll just say that, trust your gut.
All right, and then we'll finish with this. Angelo's saying, whenever I say I'm done drafting, I have a few beers and draft another one. So if you want to draft outside of your regular baseball leagues, you want to do more drafts, check out Underdog. Use our promo code ENDGAME. Get a 100% deposit match up to $100. And they have best ball drafts, which if you've never done a best ball draft, they're a ton of fun. I've never done one for baseball, but I do them for football. And they don't interfere with your season-long leagues because it's just draft, and then you don't have to do anything. So it's a great way. Not only that, it's a great way to practice for your real drafts as well, because you actually draft against people. I know one thing when I first started doing mock drafts for football, the biggest issue I would have is that people made joke picks or they timed out and they autoed. You don't have to worry about that on Underdog because everybody's putting money up. So give you a good feel for your draft. So if you haven't done it yet, check it out. They have baseball drafts. Use promo code ENDGAME.
There you go. You can still get some drafts in. Nothing's better than drafting. I agree with you, Angelo. Draft as much as possible. So get your practice in. Get chances to win, of course, too, if you do the best ball drafts. Hey, St. Patrick's, so go have some Guinness, and that'll be a good way to wrap up your draft.
All right, everybody. Thank you for being on. Appreciate it. We'll do it again. Get you ready for your drafts the last week, and then we'll be going during the season, right? To help you out during the season as well. So make sure you check out the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that like button, and we'll see you next time.